Sean via the contact person, my brother and friend, Elford, Rotarian Elford, for extending this invitation for me to be here. Interestingly enough, I was listening to the radio as many other people did. And a gentleman afterwards came up and said, I heard you on the radio. You were at the Rotary thing. I like your speech. I said, well, I'm thinking he doesn't know this. I have to think. No, I wasn't there yet. No, that was my son. I'm aware that this club was founded quite a number of years ago. And in fact, 109 years ago. And Paul P. Harris had a vision. And I believe the impact of Rotary is difficult to explain. But I must say that it has been a tremendous impact. And I think you ought to be proud to be part of such a group. Would you put your hands together for yourself? Because what I want to share with you today are 7 lessons in servanthood. Because it's kind of interesting that Paul P. Harris was such a generous person, such a person that understood that if we're going to make a difference, we have to, as business people, reach out to the community. We cannot just be taking, we got to give back. And it's interesting, President Sean, how people who followed Jesus that was kind and loving are sometimes very mean. Well, I mean, sometimes you have Rotarians that may have joined the club for different reasons and may have missed the purpose of what the service-oriented club is about. And so a lot of people may not have followed Jesus, not because of Jesus, but because of the people that were his disciples. And I hope that it's not true or possible that there are some folks who are turned off by Rotary because maybe some of us may have the wrong attitude. It's just a time for reflection. So Jesus said, no, I want you to feed them. That's the first lesson. Real servants take care of people. And so you have been called upon as a club, given a mandate by your founder, to wherever you find a need to address it and try to alleviate it as much as possible. So you can't look to someone else to do it. You have to do it. So the first lesson I want to share with us is that we, as servants, are responsible to serve. To wherever, as we said before, we see a need, to address it, to fix it. So we cannot ignore, because by nature we are called to serve. One of your mentors is service above. And I hope that we continue to do that, because some folks, they're all about self. But as a servant, as a Rotarian, it is always service above self. Then I want you to notice the second lesson. Because after Jesus told them to address it, to feed them, very much like what Paul Harris did, let's address these needs. He turned around and said, how are we going to feed them? It's all there in the story. So lesson number 2, you got to realize as Rotarians, you are not alone. I don't have to try to convince you the problems in our societies are great. They are tremendous. And no one club, no one person can meet all the needs. So we've got to partner. And I heard your president earlier said, we've got to bring a collaborative effort together. All of the energy, all of the talents we have as a club together and work together. Because as you know it, as a team, each one accomplishes more. But Jesus said, you're not alone. And you have to understand, and I know you know this, but you got to apply the principle that you are not alone. You can't meet every need. You can't solve every problem, not by yourself. And you don't need to. But together, we can. So I like the partnership that I heard announced earlier. But more than just a partnership outside, there's got to be that cooperation. Now you got to make sure that your president shines. Come on now. Because the club is going to be no stronger than the weakest member. And let me tell you this, the challenges from outside will only force you to get stronger. But if there is erosion inside, it can destroy this club. So we can stick together, aren't we? Yeah. No, that's not strong enough. We can stick together? Yeah. Okay, because we are not alone. The third lesson, I want to move this along real quickly. The third lesson found in this story, and that of servanthood, is that a real servant gives whatever he has to his master. Now, I described to you earlier that there was a scarcity. They're out in the desert and there's not enough. Has anybody ever been in a situation where there is not enough? Not enough. And especially in these tough economic times, you find yourself at the short end. Sometimes, of course, none of you all together. You have more month than money, yeah, more rent than revenue, and just more. And you have less, so you have not enough. And sometimes we feel inadequate. And in fact, when you consider the great needs and challenges, we are indeed inadequate. But remember, we are not alone. But whatever you have, give it to the master. In fact, I dare say this without any apology, whatever you have has been entrusted to you. You didn't make yourself. Anybody here make yourself? Okay, I thought not, because you could have been messed up right now. Yeah. Okay. So whatever we have been given to us. And so what needs to be understood is whatever we have, we ought to give it to the master. And I want to say this, in your club, in our community, there's always going to be somebody who's going to try to belittle who you are and what you got. But you got to believe in yourself, believe in this club, believe in the mandate, and say we can do it. Somebody say we can do it. Okay, so don't let anybody belittle you. Give to the master and you'll be surprised that the little that you think is little is much in his hands. I want to move now to lesson number 4. A real servant knows how to give thanks. Notice when they give the little to the master, and you will appreciate it if you know the story. After they brought this little that Andrew belittled to the master, who is the truest and greatest servant, he didn't belittle it. What he did, he lifted it up to his father and give thanks. Let me submit to you that one of the greatest ways to be contented is to be thankful. So you have to learn how to say thanks. Now, some of you, and I thank Rotarian Castro that he recognized his wife. Because sometimes you're away from home and you're doing other stuff, and you got to realize that while you're out, somebody's taking care of business. So you have to learn to say thanks to your family, thanks to the people. Because sometimes we think we are what we are by ourselves, but we're all standing on somebody else's shoulder. So we got to learn to say thanks for the little things. Now, some folks have grand stories about how they did this and did that, and you may not have such a grand story. But let me just say this. If all you can say is that I'm here, I survived, I made it, that's worth celebrating. So let's celebrate life right now. Come on. Lesson number 5. We're getting there. A real servant, as is a Rotarian, understands that he or she is only a conduit. Somebody say conduit. A channel. Let me say this. Life is not about what you have. It is a shame that we have reduced life to materialism. What we have and what we don't have. In fact, the greatest master said, a man's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. What makes life life is not what you have, it's what you share. It's what you give. So a servant understands that whatever he has does not belong to him. We are blessed to be blessings. So if you are hoarding all your stuff, then you don't understand what life is about. Because at the end of the day, when you die, not if you die, I don't scare some of you now. If you're ready and get ready to know it. But seriously, we all will die. And the question is, what's going to be your legacy? What are you going to leave behind? If all you are is what you are and what you have, then you're going to have a big problem. So a steward and a servant, the Rotarian, understands that he or she is a conduit to bless somebody else. So I'm going to ask each of us, not just worldwide, sometimes our greatest ministry is right under our nose. How much have we been passing on? Don't hold what you have. Don't cover what you have. You know, I find people in business and elsewhere, they like to boast about what they have, and the question is, Jesus would ask, as Paul would ask, what have you done? Have you helped anybody? Beyond Rotary. See, Rotary cannot be just something you do. It's got to be who you are. You got to be a servant at heart. Okay? And that's what's important. Number 6, we're getting there. A real servant, a real Rotarian understands that, and he knows this, that what he gives to the master comes back in abundance. Service is not just to people, it's really to God. You serve God best by serving people. Everybody understands that, right? So it's not just people you're serving, you're really serving God. Understand it real quick. I just want to get this to your mind. When the master comes to reckon of us, he's going to say, inasmuch as you've done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. So essentially, you got to see this as a bigger cause. The world is important, and people are important, but there's a bigger cause. Finally, say amen. Amen. You better say amen again, otherwise we keep stacking again. You know, Baptist preacher knows how to start over. Amen. All right, but we ain't going to do that today. Number 7. I did say I will share with you 7. And number 7 is, I want you to get this. True servant does the right thing without fanfare. This is critical. Let me just say this, brothers and sisters. If you only do what you ought to do when CNN is around, okay, let's be real. Vino is around. I'm getting there. If you only do what you do when Platinum is around, if you only do what you do when BBI News is around, we don't have Mad News anymore. Even though the news is mad. But here's the point that I'm making, that if you can only do things and only do things when you would be recognized, you do not have a servant heart. You are on an ego trip. Say amen, say ouch. Amen. So, here's it. We have a lot of good people in our territory. We have a lot of good men. And I want to bring this home now because I believe that your greatest field will always be family. We can change this nation. We can change the course of the world. One person at a time. One family at a time. And so I'm going to appeal to us as I summarize, in case you missed them. Lesson number 1. A real servant cares about people. A real servant knows he's not alone. A real servant gives what he has to the master. A real servant knows to give thanks. The real servant understands that he or she is but a conduit. Number 6, the real servant knows that whatever he gives to the master comes back in abundance. And finally, a real servant does the right thing without fanfare. I want to commend the Rotary Club of Rotary for what you have accomplished in the past. But I've always said to people that your success cannot just be measured by what you have done, but more importantly by what is left to be done and how well you apply yourself. May this 2014-15 year be the greatest year of service ever. I commend you. God bless you, fellow Rotarians.